Okay, imagine this. You're standing on an airfield, there's this hum of anticipation.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, this almost guttural snarl cuts through the air, just grows in this incredibly powerful roar. It doesn't just fill your ears, right? It vibrates right through you.
Yeah, you feel it.
Exactly. It's the sound of raw power, incredible speed, and just relentless aviation tech advancing. Today, we are diving deep into the sonic signature, the actual sound of one of history's absolute legends, the Messerschmitt Bf 109. And we're not just talking design or, its combat record. We're really exploring the voice of its engine.
Right.
And what that sound, that specific sound, can actually tell us about how it developed its legacy. Everything.
The great angle.
Our mission here is sort of, well, to peel back history using our ears, basically, to understand how the way these engines sounded changed and how that reveals the aircraft's journey from, the early days right through to its post-war life. Because, let's face it, this isn't just random noise. It's like a living testament to innovation adaptation. All the stories machines tell through how they sound. So the big question is, what secrets are hiding in those roars, those hums, those snarls of the Bf 109?
It's a really fascinating premise, isn't it? Sound, it really is this powerful historical artifact. It gives you this connection, this almost gut feeling about the past that, just looking at photos or documents, it doesn't always capture. So yeah, in this deep dive, we're going to walk you through the specific engines, how they develop, and really listen to those very distinct sonic signatures. We'll try to connect what you're hearing to the why it matters, for aviation history, but also just understanding the engineering, the challenges, the wins that shape this incredible fighter.
Let's get into this auditory journey then. Maybe close your eyes for a second. Picture yourself back in the mid-1930s. The Bf 109 is just starting to make its mark.
Yeah, the early days.
And right at its heart, roaring to life, is the Daimler-Benz DB601 engine. This was the powerhouse, the thing that defined the early 109. So what was it? What made that initial roar so distinctive? What did it tell us about how revolutionary this plane was right from the start?
Well, the DB601, it had this truly unmistakable sound. You used the word guttural, and that's actually pretty accurate. It had this almost aggressive quality. Compared to, say, its contemporaries like the British Merlin or the American Allison engines, which were carbureted, the DB601 was different. It was an inverted V12, sure, but the key thing was its Bosch direct fuel injection system. That was innovative for the time.
Oh, okay. Direct injection.
Exactly. And that made a huge difference to the sound. Where other engines might have a smoother, kind of throaty rumble, the 601 had this aggressive, almost barking quality, like a snarl.
A barking snarl like that?
Yeah, especially on startup, or when the pilot made rapid throttle changes. And that wasn't just for show, it was a direct result of that fuel injection. Instead of mixing fuel and air before the cylinder, it sprayed it right in.
Which meant instant throttle response, a much sharper, more immediate combustion. And that translated directly into that distinct, almost angry sound. Pilots felt it immediately, that responsiveness. And allies and enemies alike, they quickly learned to recognize that specific snarl. It meant power right now. Wow. It really was the sound of a cutting-edge machine. Although, getting all that power to work reliably under operational stress, but that definitely threw up its own engineering challenges early on.
An aggressive style.
Yeah. That really means it. And it came right from the core technology, the direct fuel injection, giving pilots that instant auditory feedback on power to work. Fascinating how the mechanics literally shaped the voice. But, the Second World War, the pace was just relentless. The Bf 109 couldn't just stay the same. Its engine had to evolve dramatically.
Completely.
So how did that necessity, that pressure, reshape its voice? When new variants, like the famous DB605, started appearing.
Yeah, that's where the story gets even richer, sonically speaking. The jump from the DB601 to the 605, that was huge. It was all driven by needing more performance, especially up high, and better reliability under combat conditions.
Right, the demands just kept increasing.
Exactly. Now, it was still a Daimler-Benz engine, still an inverted V12, but the DB605 sound, it was subtly different, but definitely. If you were listening carefully, you'd notice maybe a slightly higher pitch and a more sustained, intense roar at full power.
Okay, so higher pitch, more intensity.
Right. And this wasn't just more noise equals more power. It reflected specific technical upgrades. The 605 had a bigger displacement, went from about 33.9 liters up to 35.7. And crucially, it had a more advanced supercharger, 2-speed, higher gearing.
The supercharger. Big factor.
Huge factor. It allowed for higher maximum RPMs. The 601 was around 2,700 RPM. The 605 could push 2,800, even 3,000 in some later versions. And much better volumetric efficiency at altitude. So acoustically, that translates into that higher frequency kind of hum when cruising and a much more muscular sound when the pilot really opened it up. You can actually find some really interesting sonic comparisons online. Sites like Aviation have recordings where you can really try and pick out these subtle shifts between the engine type.
That's cool, so you can actually hear the evolution.
You really can. And each iteration, DE605A, the D, later ones like the AS or DC, they all brought further tweaks. Better power, maybe better fuel efficiency, and each one left its own little sonic fingerprint. A change in pitch, maybe the rhythm, the overall intensity, it all spoke directly to the plane's evolving capabilities.
So the sound wasn't just something happening to the plane. It was almost like a real-time performance indicator for the pilots themselves. Beyond the technical stuff, what did these changing sounds and acoustic signals really mean for the pilot sitting right there in the cockpit, where every sound could be critical?
Oh, absolutely.
Could they actually, hear a problem before the instruments even showed it?
For the pilots, yeah, that changing sound was vital. It was this incredibly intimate form of feedback, a different pitch, a different intensity. That wasn't just noise, it meant tangible improvements in their machine. More climb rate, higher speed, better acceleration.
They must have been constantly listening.
Constantly listening to the pulse of their aircraft. And you're absolutely right, there are so many accounts from pilots who developed this almost symbiotic relationship with their engines. A slight change in rhythm, maybe an unusual vibration at a certain RPM, or a sudden shift in the supercharger's whine. That could signal anything. Minor fouling, maybe, or something much more serious like a bearing issue, often before the gauge is even twitched.
Incredible.
This listening skill was just vital, especially when instruments could fail or get shot up in combat. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, these sonic shifts, they perfectly mirrored the escalating demands of the air war. The 109 had to get faster, climb higher, be more agile to keep up with improving Allied planes. The sound literally told the story of that constant push, that relentless drive for those incremental but absolutely vital performance gains that kept it in the fight for so long.
It really is incredible. The machine's voice directly reflecting its capabilities and the pilot's reliance on hearing those subtle changes. Okay, let's jump forward a bit.
Okay.
The war ends. But the story of the Bf 109 and its distinctive engine sounds, it doesn't just stop there, does it?
No, not at all.
How did its sonic legacy kind of continue to echo in the post-war world? Sometimes in quite surprising ways, I gather.
Yeah, it's a chapter that often gets overlooked. The Bf 109, or maybe more accurately, its derivatives, they didn't just vanish in 45. Some countries, like Spain and Czechoslovakia, actually kept building and flying versions of the 109 for years, even decades after the war.
Really?
Decades.
Oh, yeah.
But often, they had to use different engines because the original Daimler-Benz supply just wasn't there anymore. The most famous example is probably the Spanish one, the Hispano Aviation Ha-1112. It was basically a license-built Bf 109G airframe.
Okay.
But it flew with a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine.
No way. The Spitfire engine.
The very same engine that powered its biggest wartime rival. It created this totally unique sonic paradox, didn't it? You had the silhouette of a 109, instantly recognizable.
Right.
But the sound, it was that distinctive, deep Merlin growl, completely different from the DB snarl. So its look was familiar, but its voice was utterly transformed. Really fascinating bit of sonic cross-pollination up there. And these post-war versions, they also ended up having this weirdly enduring role in pop culture. Those Spanish Ha-1112s, the Merlin-engined ones, they were the Bf 109s you see in loads of classic war films, most famously Battle of Britain.
Of course, I've never seen those.
So for millions of people, the sound of a Bf 109 they associate with the war might actually be a Rolls-Royce Merlin in disguise.
That's wild.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, that history's auditory landscape, well, isn't always quite what we think it is.
That's a brilliant point about the Battle of Britain film. A perfect example of how the sound we connect with history can sometimes be, a composite or even something else entirely. And thinking about that sound, that familiar, powerful hum and roar of the piston engines, whether it was the original DB or that surprising Merlin, must have started to contrast so sharply with what was coming next.
Oh, definitely.
The emerging scream, that piercing sound of the early jet fighters. E-262, the F-86 Sabre, the MiG-15.
Exact. That sudden shift in sound from roar to scream was like, The sound of an entire technological era changing right before your ears, or rather, right above your ears.
Yeah.
The Bf-109's engine sound, which was once the absolute cutting edge of aerial warfare noise, it quickly became this poignant reminder, didn't it, of the piston engine era giving way to the thrilling, almost alien power of the jet age.
Precisely. It is almost a bit melancholic when you think about it that way, isn't it? To consider that specific engine sound, from the aggressive snarl of the early DB601 through the more refined but still potent roar of the DB605 and its variants eventually becoming just an echo of bygone time. It really drives home how certain sounds get so deeply tangled up with the identity of a machine, or even a whole historical period. They speak volumes about technological change, about the passage of time itself. And these mechanical symphonies, they still absolutely captivate aviation buffs and historians, even today. And so, that kind of brings us to the end of our deep dive into the sonic journey of the Messerschmitt Bf-109. What started as this incredibly powerful singular roar, well, it evolved constantly through the pressures of war. It reflected huge leaps in things like direct fuel injection, supercharger tech, before finally becoming this enduring echo, almost overshadowed by the dawn of the jet age. Its engine sounds, they were so much more than just background noise, weren't they?
Absolutely, not just noise.
They were like this crucial auditory window right into the aircraft's development, its life and service, and its massive place in aviation history.
Yeah, and this whole journey through the 109's soundscape, it reminds us of something really important, I think. Every machine, every bit of technology, it has a voice, a unique acoustic signature. And that signature speaks volumes about its design, its purpose, its era.
Right.
And if we learn to listen to that voice, well, it can unlock layers of history, layers of meaning that we often just overlook. It lets us connect with the past in this really visceral, immediate way.
So what does all this mean for us, listening right now? What other hidden stories might be out there waiting for us if we just listen a bit more closely? To the world around us, and especially to the unique sounds our own technology makes.
That's a good question.
Think about it. From the hum of an electric car, maybe, to the almost silent whir of your phone. What sounds from our time, from our modern tech, might tell future generations about us. But our priorities, our innovations, maybe even the very pace and feel of our lives, it's definitely something to think about, isn't it? Long after the engine roar fades.